Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name's Howie Heckman. I'm one of the developers here at PTS. Today, we're going to be kind of going over a Getting Started with Clearstream RFID webinar. So I'll be going through kind of some of the features of the software, what it does, how you can configure it. I'll set up kind of a live demonstration of the product to show how easily you can get up and running with the application. At the end of the webinar, I'll go over some of the new features that we have upcoming with our Clearstream 5.0 release, as well as a question and answer period. So if you have any questions as we go through anything today, please feel free to send those over in the question panel. Or as always, we will have our contact information up at the final portion of the webinar. So if you have anything afterwards, you can feel free to reach out to us for the information that you need regarding the software. Before I get started, I also would like to mention that all of the software that I show you guys today is available as a free download from our website. So you can download and install the software as a free trial. The only limitation is you get to use the software for 30 days, but other than that, you can really use the software and all of the features that I show you here in the webinar today. So you shouldn't have any problem getting up and running. I would like to also note that we have the webinar is being recorded. So if you'd like to, when it's posted to our website, if you download and trial the software, you can kind of follow along with what we do today if you wanted to kind of trial some of the stuff we talk about. It's a good way just to kind of not really go too deep into the user guide or anything like that. You can get up and running just following along with the video. But with that, let's get started. The first slide here I just have is really just for those of you who are really getting started with Clearstream, a little bit about what it is. Clearstream RFID is an application that allows you to map fixed RFID readers on your network into a pre-existing system. There's no programming involved. You're simply point and click and configuring the application, mapping those readers in your environment to wherever you'd like the tag information to go, and then starting up the readers so that all of the readers in your environment are collecting tag information and sending them to a database and updating that database. So in that respect, it's really kind of a middleware between the RFID readers and the database system that you already have. It supports ODBC, and in version 5.0, it'll support a native client to SQL Server, although you can use the ODBC driver as well for SQL Server. But on the ODBC side, you can sync to any database such as Oracle, MySQL, Postgres, anything like that. You can map your fixed RFID readers into that system. It also supports simply sending tag information to text files or Excel spreadsheets if you wanted to do that as well. So you have a lot of flexibility in where you're sending the tag information. Now, again, it's a middleware, so it doesn't provide the back-end database. There is a sample that I'll be using today, a sample access database that's provided with the installer. However, it's really meant to take fixed RFID readers and add them onto a system that you already have in place. So again, you can send it to really any type of back-end database, including MySQL, SQL Server, Oracle, Microsoft Excel, or text files. So what we like to say about Clearstream RFID is that it's the quickest fixed RFID solution. Really allows you to get up and running with fixed RFID quickly. You'll see that from the demonstration that I show you today, but it gives you features built into the software to find readers on your network and get them configured into your pre-existing system in a very minimal amount of steps. So in order to test fixed RFID and RFID reading performance in your environment, there's a minimal upfront investment on anyone using the system because they can get up and running quickly. Even if it's just with the trial software, you can get up and running quickly to test the tag performance. Because if any one of you have used RFID in the past, you'll want to make sure that in your environment that you have the correct tags, that you have the correct installation of the readers before you go ahead and do that final install. You really want to test how everything's going to work in your environment. And Clearstream really gives you the ability to do that. It gives you the ability to quickly set up fixed RFID into your system to begin testing, to begin piloting, and then eventually to move into a production environment. Now, Clearstream RFID doesn't have any, it's not a fixed or vertical type system where it's set up for inventory, it's set up for asset tracking or anything like that. It's something that you configure in your environment. So with that, we've seen tons of different installs within Clearstream. Things like work in process tracking, keeping track of an item as it maybe moves from a workstation 1 to workstation 2, or document type tracking where you're tracking documents from one desk to another. Stockroom inventories, taking a quick stock check of a smaller area, capturing that information and sending it to a backend database. And that could go along with like a smart shelf application where you're kind of capturing tag information real time, passively, so there's nobody going to that location to capture the information and send it back to a database. Shipping and receiving, like you see in that image there, you know, verifying things that are on a pallet, things that shouldn't be on a pallet, and things like that. But there's many more applications that you can set up with Clearstream. Really, anything you'd like to track with RFID, you can generally set up within Clearstream to kind of suit your needs. So it's not a fixed system in that you have to use it for a particular application. It's you're kind of configuring it and setting it up for what you need to do. So with that, I'd just like to talk about kind of what are the steps in getting a fixed RFID reader hooked up to your database. And I like to kind of highlight this because these are really the few steps that you want to take to get and see the application working. The first is really just connect your RFID reader to the network. So all of the readers that we support are Ethernet connected readers. So you would get the reader that you want to use for your application, plug it into your network, and then go ahead and install Clearstream. Now, even if you don't know the IP address or the host name of the reader that you just plugged in your network, Clearstream gives you a find button that'll allow it to search the network for a reader and try to find it. And if it finds it, you can then use it in your configuration. Once you have that reader, either through the find or just entering the IP address, you would go ahead and hook it up to the database that you want to start scanning tags and sending tags to. Now, you can use the sample that's provided with Clearstream, or you could hook it up to your own database. If you had something in place, you can go ahead and send data to that. Finally, you would just save your project and hit the start button, and it'll power up that scanner and start sending tag information to wherever you have that tag information selected. And with that, I'm going to jump into a live demo. Let me just see, there's a question that came over. I will be getting to questions at the end here, and I think I'll probably answer your question as I'm going through just in a second with the live demo. So I will get back to the questions at the end of the webinar. So here we'll jump out of the PowerPoint and kind of go to a live demo of the software. So let me exit out of this PowerPoint. Okay. And here you can see the home screen of Clearstream RFID. So let me get this out of the way. All right, so the basic concept with Clearstream is that you have a source of tag information and you have a destination of where you want to send that tag information to. So you can see the source tab on the left-hand side, the destination tab on the right-hand side. So tags are being collected at the source and sent to the destination. So on the type side, I simply want to select RFID as my source of tag information. On the destination side, I want to select where I'm sending the tag information every time a reader on the left-hand side collects a tag and where I want that tag information to go. So I'm going to use the sample just so that you guys could follow along if you'd like after installing Clearstream. But when you install Clearstream, there's an access database that's provided with a table in it called RFID tag list. And I'm going to empty out my database here. So I have an empty RFID tag list table, and this is how you'll see it when you install Clearstream RFID. It has no data in this, but you can see it has fields of information already configured for the reader. I have an EPC, or electronic product code, tag identifier field, user field, antenna name, peak RSSI, and so on, a date timestamp, and the reader name. So this table, if you'd like to use for testing, is already provided with the installer, and you can go ahead and configure it to collect tag information. So this database is located in the install path of Clearstream in a folder, a subfolder called data. If you look in there, you can see this access database. So I'm going to keep this open here so we can kind of see the behavior of Clearstream as I start populating this database with tags. So I'm going to jump over to the configuration again. And now since this is a database, I want to select the type of ODBC. I want to select the database that I want to send the tag information to. This will be populated. You'll see the same option in your dropdown as well, Clearstream RFID sample. So you would just go ahead and select that. When you do that, you'll be presented down below with the tables that are in that database. Now, if you happen to select an Oracle database, a SQL Server database, you're going to be presented with the same thing here. You'll select that database, SQL Server, enter the login information in the case of SQL Server or MySQL or anything like that. And then you'd see the tables in the dropdown that you can send the tag information to. Now, a quick note on some of the other databases, Oracle and SQL Server, those have views and stored procedures. Those will be available as destinations as well. So if you want to do some type of logic on the database side, or you have a stored procedure, a function that you want to run for every tag that gets sent to the database, just note you'll see that here as well. You'll see your stored procedures as well as views. In this case, I'm going to select the RFID tag list table, and that was the same RFID tag list table you see here. So right now it's empty. So let me jump back over here. I'm going to refresh these field mappings because I changed the table. And now I have the fields on the left are the fields collected by the reader, and the fields on the right are the destination fields from that Microsoft Access database table. So I'm just marrying them up one-to-one, EPC to EPC, antenna to antenna, and so on. I'm just marrying those up to the destination side. Okay, so I'm almost complete here in my configuration just to see this going. Last thing I need to do is actually add a reader on the source side. So you'll notice this little red exclamation point. That just means I have no readers configured yet. So I'm going to go ahead and add a reader. I'm going to click the reader button. And this is where I'm configuring all of the readers in my environment. So for each reader that I have, if I have one, I'm going to hit the add button once. If I have 100, I'll go ahead and enter each reader that I have hooked up to my network. So I'm going to start with, in the demo today, I was going to set up a couple of different readers so you can see the tags moving between two readers. But I'm going to go ahead and select add. When I do that, there's just a drop down that pops up to select the manufacturer of which reader you want to add to your configuration. Now, we support a wide variety of different types of readers, Zebra or / Motorola readers, Intermec, Impinj, Alien, ThingMagic, and FIG readers. We also support something called Low-Level Reader Protocol, LLRP. It's just an industry standard for communicating with fixed RFID readers. So if you don't see your manufacturer in this list, check the specs of the reader you're trying to use. If it supports LLRP, you should be able to use it in your setup. Just select the LLRP from here, and then the rest of the configuration is the same. So just to note, if it's not in the list here, you can go ahead and select that. So for the demo today, I'm going to start off with a Zebra reader. So I'm going to select Zebra here. I'm going to go ahead and name my reader just so when I see the data, I'm going to go ahead and call this one Zebra 9600. That's the reader model that I'm going to go ahead and configure. The next thing you need to do is select an IP address or host name of that reader. Now, here's where I mentioned you can go ahead and find it. You can hit this find button. It'll search your network for the readers, or you can just type in the IP address or host name into this field here. Now, I know the IP addresses, so I'm going to go ahead and do that rather than waiting for the find to complete. But just to note, if you have a Zebra reader, you plug it into your network and you don't know the IP address, you don't know the host name, click this find button here and it'll search for that Zebra reader. And if it's accessible, you hit OK and it'll fill this information out for you. So my Zebra reader is 192.168.4.118. Whoops. And if I enter that IP address, you'll see a reader ID appear here. If you see the reader ID appear, that means it has successfully communicated with the reader because it got that identifier from the reader itself. So I have a successful connection now. So the next thing I want to do is actually start this reader up. Now, the 9600 is a pretty powerful reader. I'm going to actually go ahead and dial the power down on this so that I don't read every tag in our offices here. I just want to dial it down so you can see kind of me moving the tags in front of the antenna to start picking up those. So the only configuration change I'm going to do here is add in an antenna, and I'm going to dial the power down to say 12 and hit close. Okay, and that's the only thing I want to configure for that reader. And the reason I'm even pointing that out is you don't have to do that. But I just, again, want to dial it back a little bit so I'm not reading everything in the area, because I have 4 tags here that I want to put in front of this reader. Okay, so there's our configuration. You can see now I have the Zebra 9600 on the source side, and I have my RFID tag list on the destination side, along with my field mappings down below. So at this point, I can go ahead and power up this reader and start seeing it scan tags. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to save my project. We'll call it webinar 0418. Save the project. I'm going to go ahead to the start stop form. I'm going to hit start on this reader here. It powers up the reader. And now I have 4 tags in my hand. And I don't have a webcam, so I apologize. But I have 4 tags here. I'm going to walk it over to the antenna that I have powered up. And it's powered down low, so I got to bring these tags relatively close to this antenna. So I'm going to walk over and put it in front of the reader. And now you can see I just put those tags in front of the antenna. It's scanning those tags and reporting them to the database. So that's why you can see that count going up there. It says tag sent to the destination. So there, now I'm going to pull these tags away. So I just scanned these tags 67 times. There's only 4 in my hand, but I scanned them 67 times, and they were sent to the database. And if I jump back over to my database here and hit refresh, you can see now I have those tags sent to the database. You can see there's a record count of 67 down below, 26 of 67. And you can see all of the information for those tags that I just placed in front of that antenna captured in the database. So for instance, you can see the EPC, that ID for the tag. You can see the antenna that I put in front of, which is antenna 1, a signal strength value, the date time of when the tag was scanned, also the reader name that I configured, the 9600, as well as what started it. So you can see this here is a full list that's been generated and pushed over to that database because I just took those 4 tags and placed them in front of the antenna. So I captured all of that information immediately into the database. So you can see from this setup, you can very quickly test fixed RFID reader even into a database that you already have configured. You can go ahead and do what I just did there and start scanning tags and seeing that information collected into the database. So a couple of things to note here. One is I only put 4 tags in front of the database, but you can see they're duplicated many, many times here. Here's the one that ends in 5, here it is again, and here it is again. So again, I have it in the default state. So the default state is reporting the tags that are scanned to the database every single time they're read. Now that's not going to be too useful probably for most installations, but I can go ahead and change that now to suit what I need to do so that I'm not reporting tags constantly to the database. I'm only reporting them maybe based on certain activity within that tag and that reader. So I'm going to go ahead now, power my reader down. I'm going to hit stop. I'm going to go to the database, and I want to clear the database out. So there now, all the records are gone. I'm going to also hit this reset button here on this start-stop dialog to put this value back down to 0. Now, the next thing I want to do is actually add a second reader to my environment because I want to see these tags move from one reader to another reader. So I'm going to go back to my configure. I'm going to go back to, let me name this here, Zebra reader. And now I'm going to go back to the, I'm going to hit the plus button here because I want to add a second reader to my environment. So now I have a fresh setup for another reader. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select RFID as my source, ODBC as my destination. I'm going to select the Clearstream RFID sample and the RFID tag list destination. I'm going to refresh the field mappings. I'm going to go to readers because I don't want to use the same reader for this destination. However, I can do that. Just as a note, I can take the tags that one reader is reading and send it to multiple destinations. So if you wanted to send to a database as well as to, say, an Excel spreadsheet, you could do that. But I'm going to go ahead and add a second reader. This time I'm going to add a completely different manufacturer. I'm going to go ahead and enter a FIG reader here. Let's call this, I'm going to call this one FIG UHF because I want to show you guys something else again after this. But I'm going to call this FIG UHF, ultra high frequency. So that's the same, the Zebra 9600 is UHF tag as well, a reader as well. But I'm going to go FIG UHF. And now I know the IP address of this one as well, which is 4.133. I'll go ahead and enter that information. It grabs the reader ID from that FIG reader. And I'm going to leave this one in default state because this one's a little less powerful than the Zebra. And I think I should be able to move the tags in front of it without scanning everything in the area. So I'm going to go ahead and save this again. I'm sorry, I want to do one more thing. I'm going to call this the FIG reader. And I need to select the FIG as the source in this case. So now I have FIG as a source in this process, and I have the Zebra reader as the source in this process, and they're both reading to the same database table. Let's go ahead and save it again. Jump over to Start Stop. I'm going to hit Start All. It powers up both readers. I'm going to take my tags. I'm going to go in front of the FIG reader. It starts scanning tags at FIG reader. So now I'm going to pull away. So now I'm at 16 tags in the database that got sent to the database. Now I'm going to walk over to the Zebra reader and put them in front of the Zebra reader. Now you can see that count going up. Now I'm going to pull them away again. So I pulled them away. I didn't want to get as many tags that time. And you can see I read both of those readers. One read 16, the other one read 13 of those 4. If I go to my database, I should have 29 here. If I hit refresh, I have 29 rows in my database. The tags, they're the same tags between the two tries. You can see that the antenna was read by antenna 1 on the FIG. I didn't add an antenna to the configuration of that one, so it's the default, which is 1. So I went from the FIG reader to the zebra reader. So you can see the first couple entries here are for the FIG reader, the second are from the antenna. And if I go over to the reader name, you can see even a better description of where that tag is, FIG UHF, then to the 9600. So that reader name and the antenna name are important for doing like locationing of these tags. Say you have one reader hooked up around a portal and another reader hooked up around a different portal. Based on that reader name that you can configure, you're capturing where that tag is because it's posting that reader name to the database based on which reader scanned the tag. So you can see that information captured here as well. There's more questions popping up that I will try to get to right at the end of the webinar. So I'm capturing the movement of the tags from this reader to this reader. Okay, so I still haven't, I'm reading duplicates into these readers, right? So I have this 1006 read twice in a row. You can see here I'm posted to the FIG. So let's go ahead and control that. I'm going to go ahead and make it so that I only read the tag once when it's sitting in front of a reader. And so when I see it go from one reader to the next reader, I only get one entry for that tag each time that happens. So let's go ahead and set that up. I'm going to power down these readers, hit stop all. I'm going to go back to my database. I want to go ahead and delete all of the records in the database. And the reason I'm deleting this is it's easier to visualize what's happening here. So I'm clearing out my database again, and I'm going to hit reset to these counts. So again, let's take my 4 tags, and let's capture and try to capture only 8 total reads into my database. So 4 when it hits the FIG, 4 when it hits the zebra reader, no matter how long I'm sitting in front of those, because I only want to see that movement. I don't want to see that it captured the same tag 100 times in front of the first antenna. So let's go ahead and do that, and I'll talk a little bit about the settings that you can use to configure that. So this is one of the most important parts of Clearstream, is these moderating tag reads, really just controlling tag reads that are being sent to the database based on the activity of the tag. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on. When this is off, it's sending every time a tag is read to the database, like you've seen now with the last 2 examples. It's recording those tags each time they get sent to the database. So I'm going to change that. I want to go ahead and turn this on. I'm going to go ahead and moderate by the reader. I'm going to set a timeout time of, say, 5 seconds. And I want to do a couple of things. I want to report when the tag is visible, but I don't want to report the tag again until after it's not visible. So the key to this whole setting is this timeout time. This 5 seconds that I have specified here for my timeout is the amount of time that the reader is going to remember that tag. So if a tag comes in front of a reader and it's scanned, that reader now is told to remember this tag for 5 seconds so that I can do things based on that. So it's in a buffer for that reader for 5 seconds. And for the duration that it's in that buffer, if I say something like report tag no longer visible, if it goes out of that buffer, meaning it's not scanned again within those 5 seconds, I can report to the database that the tag's no longer seen. So I can keep track of how long a tag is sitting in front of an antenna, because it's reporting that, hey, it came and I saw it, but now I haven't seen it for this timeout that you specified, 5 seconds. So report it to the database and say, hey, it's gone away. Also, because of that, because it remembers it for 5 seconds, you can also say report tag again only after not visible. Now, because it's in the buffer, it's technically still seeing the tag, but because I'm saying report it again only after not visible, I want it to flush out of that buffer after the 5 seconds before it tells me about it again. So I'm going to turn this tag no longer visible off, but I'm going to go ahead and set this same setup up for both of the readers. 5 seconds and report tag visible. I'm also going to, just so you can see this, I'm going to say, let's picture this as an item moving from one workstation to another. So I'm going to call the tag visible to say at workstation. At workstation. We'll do that for, let's do at workstation 9600. And for the FIG, we'll say at at workstation. If I could type, let's just do at workstation 1, and let's just do at workstation 2, 1 and 2. Okay, so this actually is a value that's going to be captured with the tag into the database. So let's go ahead and try this. Now I'm going to save my project again. I'm going to hit start. I'm going to go with the start all, powers up both readers. I'm going to take my 4 tags again. I'm going to go over to that FIG reader. I'm going to put the tags in front of that. And now you can see it gets the 4 tags there. Now it's keeping them in the tag buffer. And now I'm going to walk away. But it only captured those tags 4 times, even though I was holding them in front of that antenna for some length of time. Now I'm going to take them. Actually, I'll just go ahead and refresh the database so you can see. If I go over to the database, you'll see I have 4 entries in here, and I only have 1 entry for each tag. So, on antenna 1, and you can see I have the at workstation 2, values backwards, but at workstation 2 as the event that's hitting the database. Now I'm going to take these same tags, and I'm going to walk over to my FX9600, which is a second workstation, and I'm going to put them in front of that. And you can see the count has gone up, and I think I walked past the FIG there, but the count for the 9600 has gone up by to those 4 tags, and I'm holding these tags in front of the antenna, and it's not reporting them to the database. It's keeping them in that buffer. It has told me, don't tell me about these again until they've gone away for at least those 5 seconds, because I don't care about it. I just know they're at that workstation. So let me move these tags back away. I'm going to go to my database, and you can see the FIG one went up by 1. I think I walked past that reader a little too closely. If I refresh it, you can see I hit that FIG reader with an additional tag. However, the 4 tags that I then walked over to the 9600 have been reported to the database, and you can see the tag event is at workstation 1 in that case. Now, at the same point, I've walked those away for at least 5 seconds, so now I can take them again and put them in front of another workstation. So I'm going to go ahead and move them back over to the FIG workstation. So I'm going to go to that FIG workstation, and it's going to go up again by the 4. So you can see it went from 5 up another 4. It's at 9 tags. I'm holding them in front of that buffer, that antenna, and it's keeping track of them but not reporting them to the database because I told it, don't tell me about them until after the database. So I'll move them back away, and just for fun, I'll walk back over to the 9600 and be sure to stay away from the FIG reader, further away from it. So I'm going to walk over these. I'll put it in front of the Zebra reader. That Zebra reader now goes up to 8, and you can see I have those 4 tags they're being tracked between the 2 readers as I move them, and it's only telling the database about those tags once. And as I go back to the database and hit refresh, you will see that these tags have been moving back and forth from the one reader to the next reader and back and forth. So you can see that tag event workstation 2 to 1 to 2 to 1. So I'm moving them back and forth between that. I'm getting date timestamps of when each one of those actions happened, and I'm capturing that information in the database. So just to illustrate that one more time, I'm going to go ahead and delete all this data again. I'm going to add one additional feature here, which is kind of useful for like this workstation type tracking. Let me stop all of my readers. I'm going to go to configure. I'm going to go to the readers option here, and I'm going to do another thing called report tag again. Report tag no longer visible. I'm going to change the label to left workstation 2. I'm going to do that for both of these readers. I'm going to close this. Now I'm telling the readers to tell me about this tag when you don't see it any longer. So I'll go ahead and I have all my counts back down to 0. I'm going to hit start all. I'm going to take my tag. I'm going to walk over to the 9600, avoiding the FIG, and I apologize, I have 2 readers sitting relatively close to me here. So I'm going to go ahead and put this over. The Zebra reader has now gone up 4, and it's not reporting the tags any longer to the database because they're still sitting here. They're still sitting on the reader or at the antenna, and it's not hitting the database. I just know that these things showed up at whatever time it is right now, and it's reported to the database. Now I'm going to take these tags and actually walk away. I'm going to pull these tags away, and now it's at 4, and I'm not nearby that reader anymore, that antenna. And now you can see after the 5 seconds that we specified, it just went up to 8. So if we go over to the database, we can now see 2 entries for each one of these tags, so 8 in total. We can see that the first 4 entries were that it came to the workstation 1, and the last 4 entries are left workstation 1. So we can keep track of, because that buffer is maintaining the state of those tags, we know how long they were at this workstation. And we're getting date timestamps of that activity here. 11:33 is when they showed up, 11:33:16, and they left at 11:33:42. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let me clear this out. I'm going to stop all of my readers. And I wanted to add one additional reader to this project because with some readers we support, let me reset this, we support HF technology as well. So what I've shown you now is UHF technology. It's longer read ranges for tags. It's set up for more like a portal type installation where you want to capture stuff maybe at a distance. You can still dial it back like I showed you with that antenna power for the 9600. You can dial it back to a contact, almost type scan to an antenna. But we also support some HF readers. So you can kind of mix and match the technology in the same environment. So HF is a lower frequency, shorter read range. It's often used in things like library tracking where you have to place the books on top of, say, some type of HF pad to capture the tag information in order to send it to the database. It has its areas where it's more appropriate than UHF, maybe tightly packed items where UHF, the antennas themselves would block the read range in kind of a densely packed area. HF is less susceptible to that, so you can have more tightly packed items for tracking. So depending on the type of installation, sometimes HF would be a appropriate reader technology to use. But just to note, Clearstream can support both. So I'm going to go ahead and add an HF reader to this. I'm going to go ahead and select Add. I'm going to select a FIG HF reader that I have hooked up here. It's just selecting the same reader. I'm going to go ahead and call this one FIG HF. The IP address for my FIG HF reader is 4.130. So I'll go ahead and enter that. It finds the reader ID. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here. I'm going to do moderate tag reads for this based on the reader. I'll do like a 10-second read, and I'm going to say report tag again only after not visible, and I think that's all we'll do. We'll do that. We'll add an additional process here, a new process for a new reader, HF reader. Same thing as always, I select RFID as the source, ODBC is the destination. I'm going to go ahead and do this Clearstream RFID sample, refresh these field mappings, and I'm going to change the source to be the FIG HF reader. And I think that's all I want, so I'm going to go ahead and hit save. So now this one, I'll go ahead and just select it and hit start selected here. It's going to power up that reader. I'm going to take, just like the previous sample, I'm going to go ahead and take now I have a stack of 10 tags. I'm going to go ahead and put a stack of 10 tags on my HF pad here. And you can see immediately when I put those tags down on top of that reader and they're just sitting there, it is now reported those. I'm going to take another stack of 10 tags. And it'd be nice if I had a webcam. I'll have to think about that for the next webinar. But now I'm going to take another stack of 10 tags and place them on this reader. Now it'll go up to 20. Now I'll take another stack of 10 tags. I'm moving them over and putting them on top of this pad. Should go up to 30. And I'll take one more. I do have up to 100 of these, but I'll go ahead and put another stack on there. So now I'm moving these on top of that pad, and you can see it's reporting all 40 of those to the database. It's using the same functions that I just set up for UHF, so it's only reporting them the first time they show up because now they're all just sitting on top of that pad. And if I refresh this, there's no duplicates in this list. They're all unique tags that are being sent to the database. You can see there's 40 of them. And I just captured all of those along with the same type information on the UHF side. So I just wanted to show you guys that because that is actually new to 4.1. Take another stack of 10, put them down there. And you can see there I have 50 tags now that this thing is tracking on top of the pad, reporting those tags to the database, just as in the same way that it does with UHF. So I did want to show you guys that. Kind of how you can mix and match technologies, because when I get to the slide at the end of this, it will briefly talk about some of the new 5.0 features. The setup for the beacons which were sent out is going to be the same as the other technologies here. Okay, so with that, I guess I'll just kind of talk over some of the other features of Clearstream RFID. I don't know if I'll set anything up here and actually run it to the database at this point. But let me kind of describe some of the other stuff that you can set up within Clearstream. So a couple of things. On the source side, you can set up tag filtering. So if you have tags in your environment that happen to have some type of prefix or some format, you can set up tag filtering so that you're only capturing your tags in your environment and other tags in the area aren't sent to the destination. So you can set up tag filtering, and these can be different per reader if you'd like. So for each one of these, you can set up different tag filtering options. On the destination side, you can change how the tags are posted to your database. So by default, they just append to the bottom of the table. But you can also do things like overwrite your table. So that's useful for maybe like a stockroom or a smart cabinet, where every time you do a scan, you just want to overwrite the inventory that you've captured. So imagine you have a reader that comes on once a day, scans a cabinet for all of the tag information, sends that tag information to the database, and just clobbers what you had there previously, so that you're capturing, so that when you look at that destination, you see everything that the last scan had collected. You can also update the existing database as well as delete existing data in the database. The update is useful if you want to keep one entry per tag in your database. You just want to update it with the most recent information. So if you wanted to maybe keep track of something as it moves throughout an environment and you don't care about like a transactional history of the tag, you can just do an update. So it'll update that tag in your database every time it's scanned. And you can do that per reader as well. On the reader side, there's a ton of other options in here for how and when these readers are scanning for tags and things like that. You can change the scan mode. The default is continuous. The second you hit that start button, it powers up the reader and it's constantly scanning for tags and constantly, based on your settings, sending the tags to the destination. You can also do timed scanning. So to do that, you would just select the radio button for timed, and then define when and how the readers, or what time and for how long the reader is scanning for tags. Finally, there's also a general purpose input trigger, GPI trigger. Most readers, not all of them, but most have input ports that you can hook up things like buttons, motion sensors, light sensors, photo eyes, things like that. So if you wanted to trip a read for some duration, say 10 seconds after a motion sensor was tripped, you can configure that here. And you can configure it also with multiple ports. So if you had two sensors hooked up to a reader and maybe you wanted to capture like a direction based on which GPI was tripped first, you could go ahead and select that here. So just note you can wire up motion sensors and things like that to the reader, and Clearstream can be used to that will cause the read rather than just once you hit start. The antenna tab here, I only touched on for the Zebra reader just to dial the power down, but this is where you configure the different antennas that you have on the reader. Now the Zebra 9600 that I have here has 4 ports. You can name all of the antennas. So maybe you have antennas set up at 2 different workstations. You can name them appropriately so that the data that's coming over into the database captures that information. So the antenna name gets posted along with the tag that was read. So you can configure that name. You can also then configure the power level of the antenna. Now this is a very important setting for testing of RFID. You may want to dial the power down because you're reading too many tags in the area, just like I did for this demo here. I set my power here to 12 decibels so that it's not reading as far away, because we have tons of tags in our offices here. If I dial the power way up and try to do anything that makes sense other than posting thousands of tags to the destination, I would want to change this power level. So I'm only reading, say, the 4 that I am walking over to the antenna with. So you can change that power level there. The tag settings, we talked about. This again is one of the most important areas of Clearstream, I think, in controlling how and when tags are reported to your database. So you can go ahead and play with the settings here. You can also do custom events, which gives you the ability to custom set up a sequence of things that has to happen before a tag is sent to a database. The most common use case for that is direction. So if it was read by antenna 1, followed by antenna 2, that's your tag event for check-in. And in reverse, antenna 2 to antenna 1, you can have that as your event for checkout. So you can set up that type of with check-in, checkout type setup with custom events. Custom fields, I won't get into too much detail here, but just to note, the reader is pre-configured within Clearstream to collect these fields of information, EPC down to tag event here. You can add your own custom fields to the reader. That just means you can do things like add a static value to the reader. So maybe in your database, you always needed to post some database value with each tag. You can customize that here. And you can also customize, you can also set up tag parsing. So you can actually do something like read the user memory bank of the tag, which for those of you that know, the user memory bank, you can encode whatever value you'd like to that data. Some tags don't have it, but if you have it, you can code whatever you'd like. And you can parse the information that's in that tag into multiple fields of your custom fields here and post them to the appropriate fields on your database. So some common installs we've seen with that are a part number and a serial number encoded to the user memory bank. So you have the two values in the user memory bank, and you don't want to post those two values into the same field on your database side. So you can have this defined to break up the part number and the serial number from that user memory bank when it's scanned into a part number and a serial number field in the database. GPOs are general purpose output. We also can control not only the inputs to trip reads, but the outputs to do things like security checkpoints. Maybe if a particular tag is not allowed to go through a portal, you can power up a buzzer or light or something like that to alert someone of that condition. The general setup here is you add a item to this list. You select what alert happens that causes the output to be powered up. Could be something like a tag read. You set the duration of how long you'd like the buzzer or whatever it is to power up, so maybe 1.5 seconds. And then what causes it, or what process and condition causes it. So maybe we'll do a process ID of 1 and a condition of 1. So this just means that a tag was successfully read for process 1, and the processes go by the order over here. You can see this one's 3. The Zebra reader would be 1. So this would basically be saying power up Zebra's port 1 when there's a tag read that's successfully sent to process 1 for a 1.5 seconds. So you could flash a light or something like that every time a tag is read. Finally, in the device tab here, this is specific to each manufacturer. Some have more settings than others. I won't go into too much detail here. They generally have each have a reset of the device. So if you had to restart the reader for some reason, you can do that. The Zebra readers have some additional tag moderated type settings that you can configure here as well, but these will be different per manufacturer. Okay. So those are all the kind of the reader settings, as well as the source and destination options. The only other thing I'd like to mention maybe before we hop over to that PowerPoint is in the preferences area, you can set up notifications to notify somebody via an email of readers being disconnected from Clearstream. Because these are all connected over your network. They can go down if your network goes down or a reader just gets unplugged or something like that. You can have Clearstream notify you of that condition. Clearstream will always attempt to reestablish communication to a reader for the duration of it being down. It will also email you if it comes back online. However, it will give you that notification that a reader's down because it is a passive application. It's meant to be running in the background, controlling all of these readers. So therefore, it's you need to be notified if there's some sort of issue. So just to note that that is set up here in the preferences dialog. So I think with that, I'm getting a little long here on time. I'll jump back over to the PowerPoint for any questions you guys may have. I know there were a couple that had popped up already. Let me bring up the PowerPoint just to get to that slide. And actually, I did want to mention, I did have one other slide before I get to that. Really quickly, some of the stuff we have coming up in our Clearstream 5.0 release. For 5.0 for the third quarter, really, and maybe into second quarter, we're looking to release a new version of the Clearstream software. And the biggest support that we're adding for that is the support for Bluetooth beacons. And we have a number of manufacturers of the readers that we already have support for. But the configuration is actually identical to HF and UHF. So now you have the option of selecting HF, UHF, or a Bluetooth beacon manufacturer for the data that's being collected out in the field. So the configuration from everything you guys have seen today is almost identical. There's a couple different changes in that it doesn't support multiple antennas and things like that. But the configuration otherwise is identical to UHF and HF readers. And then you set it up in the same way. You're mapping that Bluetooth beacon gateway reader to a destination where you want the beacons to go. And so for those of you that don't haven't seen beacons, they're basically battery powered. You can kind of consider them battery powered RFID tags, active tags. They use Bluetooth technology, Bluetooth frequencies for communication, but they just really are battery powered and they ping out their identifier. So what's nice about them is that they have a much longer read range than UHF or HF tags. Because they're battery powered, they don't need to be powered by any antenna within the area. They have their own power source. So you can see read range is much longer through walls, over open distances. It could be up to 300 feet, depending on the size of the beacon. But you can get much longer read range. So it has its place in certain areas, like maybe high value assets or personnel, where you're not too concerned with replacing the battery on these devices, because you do have to do that every once in a while to replace that as so that the beacon is working. But it gives you much further read range. It also allows you to do cool things like locationing. You can do real-time locationing because you can see actually the distance from the gateway to the reader that's being picked up. So you can do real-time locationing that way. So for 5.0, we're looking to support multiple manufacturers of the gateways with many, many different types of beacons. There's all sorts of beacons out there. And really the cool thing is that the setup is the same. So if you're set up HF and UHF readers in your environment and you now want to add Bluetooth technology to your setup, it's the same setup within Clearstream. We also have a new destination type that we're setting up, which is really a custom report area. And it allows you to define in an XML document, and for those of you that are familiar with our Tracer Plus printing engine or email engine, it's the same thing. It's an XML document that defines a layout for a report that's generated. And then that report can be sent to different destinations, one of which, the coolest one that we've seen, is email, so that you can send your tag data not only to a database, but to an email. So if you can imagine using the filtering options for an additional sync process, you can not only capture your UHF or your RFID tag information to a database, you can also then, if something's going through a portal that's not supposed to be, send it off in an email in a customized report, and you can see that exact item that goes through a portal that's not supposed to. We have some cool demos set up here in our office for a smart cabinet that detects based on those settings that you saw before, where you can report when a tag is no longer visible. You can do the email process only when a tag has gone not seen any longer. So once it switches that state, it sends to the database that the tag is no longer seen, but because it's tag no longer seen, it also sends it to the email destination. So you can get an email of exactly something that left that cabinet. So look for that in our version 5.0 release. Should be around in third quarter of this year. And with that, I guess questions. There are a couple that popped up here. I think I might have answered some of them. But the first one is exactly what readers do you support, make, and models. So you saw from that list there, we support Zebra readers, FX 7500s, 9600, the 9500, as well as I believe their XR 450s were the ones prior to that are supported. We support Impinj Speedways, Intermec readers, the two models that they have. They have a forklift mount and their fixed mount. Thing Magic readers, as well as all of the FIG readers for both HF and UHF. And then we have that LLRP support. So if you don't see it in the list, you can go ahead and take a look at that LLRP. Just so anybody knows, if there is a manufacturer that you'd like to see supported, reach out to us, and we can generally add, per customization, an additional manufacturer to our supported types. The question after that, how do you know you're getting 100% read rate? It's easy with 5 tag, but let's say you have hundreds. It's a very good question. Clearstream, again, right now is the streaming application. So if it misses a tag, you're not going to know about that within Clearstream. So typically what happens there is you have some type of UI built on top of your database to be able to show which tags were scanned. Because as far as Clearstream is concerned, it's the collector of that tag information, the routing into the database. And if there's a tag that's hidden, that's not picked up, it doesn't know about that. It's the only time it would know about something like that is at the database side, and Clearstream doesn't really support any type of reporting on the database side. So that would be something that you would add to your database as a way of validating that you've scanned everything. Now, just a note, I don't have any information here for the 5.0 feature set, but we are looking to add more of a UI capability to Clearstream so that you can set up what you're discussing here. If you'd like to reach out to us with what you're trying to set up, we can get you more information on that as well. But that's something that's currently not available, but we're looking for in the next release of Clearstream as well. Okay, I have a question here. Can you use a mobile reader with Clearstream like the MC9200? The funny thing about Clearstream, at least on the Zebra side, is you can actually connect to a mobile reader. However, it runs it in like a standalone mode because it's going to power it up thinking it's basically a fixed reader. So if you do that find feature and you have an MC9200 or 3190Z or something like that sitting on your network, Clearstream's going to find it and it'll actually be able to communicate with it and power it up. But you generally don't want that on one of those devices because you want the user interface and the user to pull the trigger on the device to start the read. So we actually have another product, if you're not familiar with it, called Tracer Plus, which will run on your device there, and it supports all types of different RFID features for capturing tag data. That's Tracer Plus. That's our mobile software that you can, it's a drag and drop environment for creating mobile forms that you can deploy to your MC9200. And we have a syncing tool very, very similar to Clearstream, but it's handling communication from the mobile forms that you've created for RFID data collection into a pre-existing system. So I would take a look at tracerplus.com. We also have webinars like today's for that software as well, but that generally handles the mobile side for RFID. There's another question here. Actually, I'll skip over to the mobile computers in the future. I'm not familiar with this IEH450. That might be the alien reader. We, again, have support for mobile readers on the Tracer Plus side. So if you're looking for mobile RFID software, I'd recommend taking a look at that application. It allows you to build in all sorts of RFID features for scanning tags, seeing tags that were missed, and all of that type of stuff on a mobile device, Android, iOS, or Windows Mobile and CE, and sync the data that's collected with those devices to the same destination, say, that you might be using with Clearstream already. Yeah, and the Alien, the H450, that's a Alien reader. We don't support that one currently, but we are looking at support for that in our 10.0 release, which is due out shortly. So keep an eye out for that, and we can get you a build, even if it's an early build for that support. I have a question here about, can the software template be branded like a white label? This is something that we have done in the past. It's a customization to Clearstream. One thing I could note to you is that Clearstream can be run as a Windows service. So you can install the software, configure it, and then run it as a Windows service, which is basically headless. There's no UI to that portion of it. So that could be an option for you. I don't know if you wanted to run it as the Windows service. I mean, the only spot you'd see Clearstream is in the, if you go to the services list within Windows, you'd see the Clearstream RFID sync service running. However, no user would be accessing that software from that side. I don't know if that's something that might interest you, or if you wanted to reach out to us. I'll have the contact information up at the end here to talk about some type of white label option that takes it even further than that. Question follow-up, I guess, for the email. Any plans for SMS messaging? We do support that on the mobile side, so that could be something we look at for the that report setup as well. I know there are email services that can convert an email into an SMS. That might be a workaround for you, but you can email a certain email address and it'll actually spit out an SMS on the other side. But that could be something, because we do support it on the mobile side for doing SMS messaging that we support in our initial release of Clearstream. That one I'm not entirely sure about. We're looking to have a number of different destinations that you can send your format, and SMS might be one of them. Email definitely is, and files definitely are as well. But we could do SMS as well. Okay, any other questions? I'll keep this panel open here, and please feel free to send them over as I bring up our contact information. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have here, so don't feel the need to stop as I'm kind of talking about this. But here's our contact information. So any questions that you guys have after the webinar today, or any information, as well as feedback on the webinars. I always say this in the webinars, but if you guys have any feedback on how we're doing with these, how's the content and all that sort of fun stuff, please reach out to us as well. We'd be glad to get that, so we can kind of tailor these webinars towards what everyone would like to see. But here's our contact information. I always encourage everybody to go ahead and go to clearstreamrfid.com and download the free trial, so you can test all the software there. And if you don't have any questions today, you'll probably have some as you set the application up and trial anything on your end. So I would encourage you to go ahead and try that. But I guess as long as there's no other questions, I do appreciate everyone hopping on the webinar today. I hope this was informative for everyone. I hope it was very helpful. But I guess thank you all for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day, everyone. All right, bye-bye.